Innovation is key for the economic development of nations and companies, but when innovation becomes open, here's the magic. Human resources become crucial in the use of ideas, scientific knowledge, and in technology inside and outside the organization. Creating an environment where both internal and external actors can actively get involved in the generation of the best solutions of both parties, and thus building collaborative communities on a mutual challenge, are the main features of open innovation. Collaboration and a courageous approach to solving problems is a natural consequence. Cooperation becomes innovation. This is true for any economic sector, including the cultural and creative industries and social innovation. But how to connect the potential of creative industries with old and new markets using open innovation approach? This is what the Interreg Med social and creative community is wondering about. Come and join us in the first episode of the Innovation Camp on the 27th of May.
Prego, Rosa.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this appointment. I am Rosa Porro, and this day I have the role of the moderator. I just say thank you so much for this role. Okay, 151 organizations from 50 Europe countries and more than 400 stakeholders. Gated around 11 thematic projects coordinated by Horizon Project. This is the social creative community, funded by the Interreg Med program and led by Puglia region. Through the modular project, the community explores the 1,000 nuances for creative and social innovation, from textile to Mediterranean diet, from sharing economy to social vocation and enterprises, from open data to public procurement and innovation. It is a mission to pave the condition to creative and innovation to open, by both adopting a participatory approach and the new tools find and elaborate the most suitable solution on the needs of a regional policy maker and citizen. So let's go to start with this day, and I just want to remember all the person are listening us. There is the opportunity to follow this program also in streaming the Facebook page and also in the Social Creative Project website. And also in this case, it's possible to ask questions to the speaking after they finish or during, depends the speaker. Now, I would like to introduce our first person. It's Christopher Meyer, Secretary Coordinator in the Reg Med program.
Some activities that European programs, you have mentioned Horizon and also Interreg Med, are organizing around the Mediterranean, and I'm starting from a point of view where I wanted to have the modest approach to mention some points about to give you some input, some thoughts about what the European territorial cooperation, because this is actually the context in which Interreg Med is organizing activities, can uptake innovation and promote innovation. So I have started, perhaps I thought as I am the first one, I start with some thoughts to come finally perhaps to our program, because we are in a transition period. We are between two program periods, and in the same time we are now organizing the next program period, which in the European context is already 7 years. It will not take long. It is a first thought that is concerning innovation and challenges. And it takes you a little bit back, because I don't want to go back in history too far. You could go very far. You could, for example, think about innovation about the city of Marseille, that Greek sailors had to come to Marseille, and for that matter, they needed first to do some input in sailing and navigation. But this is not the case. I will start with modern history, and I think if you come if you have a look at the modern history of innovation, at one point you will come upon Silicon Valley, and you will think about how has it been possible that innovation took place at what time, at this time in this particular place. This is a territorial entity that at this time started to be for now a reference, a worldwide reference, more or less, for innovation, for connecting different thoughts. And you have an idea that it was perhaps always a group of crazy nerds that were developing things in their garages. But if you go back to the very beginnings, to the very roots, you will find something different, because you will see that at this time we have to go back to the 30s of the last century. That even at this time it was a time of transition. It was a time of a big crisis, and there was a clear intervention from government, from the government side also, to organize. We have to say on in what context. So to organize in a new way. Communication. There was a lot of motivation also from military side, which we are perhaps not so eager to mention, but it was at the time this was the context. So we had it was not just a bulk of different ideas. It had been planned. The territory had been chosen, and this was where then throughout the timeline the context has changed. My second thought, and now I'm going to Interact, because perhaps you have seen last year that Interact we have somehow celebrated our 30 years. So this means actually in modern history we are quite young. So 1990 we had the first Interact projects. It was at the time it was a kind of more or less exclusive cross-border logic. We had projects that were dealing, for example, with like rural settings, where we had labeling for some products, or also some first training sessions for people from one border, from one side of the border or the other side of the border. So this is, if you go back to the roots of Interact, this is more or less how cooperation started. And now, if you see it in the larger context, you see that this is where we started also a different process, because the Horizon program at the same time, which you know is a research program. It was not called Horizon back then. It started a couple of years earlier. It started in 84. It was targeting research universities, so it was a very high level target. European cooperation was in many ways at this time was a high level cooperation. We were talking about a supranational approach. So in 1970, for example, so 20 years before Interact started, we had Airbus started to as a big plan to build planes. In 1959, another 20 years now, more or less, before the European coal and steel community had been invented. So we were in a really top-down approach where we had this idea of supranational. So there were some topics that could not be organized on a national level, and so we needed another level. So the European level was more or less at this time was felt to be a supranational level. Now Interreg is a bottom-up approach. So you see, because all of a sudden you see already we were talking about university, about research, about building planes, about coal and steel organization, and we had from Interreg, we were taking up the challenges that people were meeting on everyday life, that were living on one side or the other side of borders. So this program, Interreg program, has a different approach. It has the idea, and this is also where I'm now coming back to innovation in the new program period. It has the idea to take up the ideas from the ground, a little bit of grassroots, to take up grassroots ideas as well. And we are not in an approach where we have large funds. As you know, we don't have funds to build planes or only motorways or things like this. But we can help you to connect your ideas to the challenges, because we have extreme challenges also for the next program period. And this is where I'm now concluding and coming to our new program, because if you have a look at it, you can find it. You can find the information on our website. And if you have had a look at it, you have perhaps you've seen that we have a very strong priority now on climate change, which is perhaps comparable to some extent to what has happened in the 1930s, in the last century, in the 30s of the last century, when Silicon Valley was also created as an answer to the challenges that we had at this time. And when we talk now about Green Deal, it's not a coincidence that this is somehow similar to the New Deal that was discussed at the same time in the United States, because the challenges were tremendous and solutions had to be found. Our contribution from the Interreg side cannot be to build, as I've said, large infrastructure or large investments, but to take up the ideas from the ground and to do something with the ideas that help us to continue. And this is also why we are not talking about supranational anymore. We have a transnational approach. So we are taking ideas from one side to the other side of the Mediterranean. We want to enlarge the horizon. We want to cooperate with other programs. We still have an important space for innovation in the new program proposals. You can see that we have, for example, a priority for Smarter Med, which is taking up, giving you the opportunity to take up your ideas and to develop them also for the next program period. It is not bad to have always in mind in what context we are working now. So I think we are working in a context of crisis. We had a health crisis, and we cannot stop to recover, because at the same time what climate change is imposing on us is continuing. It is not stopping. Because we want to take some years off because we have first get back to the normal way, and then we can look at climate change. At the same time, we have to do both things. We have to get over the health crisis, and we have to adapt our life to climate change. So I don't want to go more into details. I think we can discuss during the day perhaps on some ideas that we have. We are not in a phase where we have already terms of reference or things like this. We are in a phase where we are drafting the program, but I want to give you to open some windows perhaps on this program. And I think well, this is my input for today, and I wish us an interesting and successful meeting on this. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you so much. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Crescenzo Antonio Marino from Italy, Director of the Research, Innovation and Institutional Capacity Selection, Puglia region. Okay, maybe there are some problem with the Crescenzo Antonio.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Foro, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome all. I would like to warmly thank you for connecting and participating in today's innovation camp. A special thank to our guests, Christoph Meyer, the project officer for the program Interreg Joint Secretariat, Professor Marcel Bogers from the Eindhoven University of Technology, Professor Fernando Villarino from the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona and the chairman of our partner Enel, and furthermore Susana Belosevic Romanak, Laura Boffi, Antonia Christou, Rebecca Early, Francisco Javier Iglesias Gracia, who one by one will tell us about their experiences of successful open innovation cases. Our colleague Marco Diciano, Research and Innovation Officer at Innova Puglia, one of the in-house companies of the Puglia region, will draw the conclusion of today's meeting. Today's event is the first episode of 3 virtual events addressing 3 specific themes on which the community of creatives and social innovators over the Mediterranean is working. The Open Innovation for Society, today's theme. The second one is the industrial transformation, scheduled in December 2021. And the third one is sustainable development, to be organized by March 2022. The Innovation Camp is part of the activities of the Interreg Social and Creative community, led by a Puglia region, that proposes to experiment a Mediterranean model of innovation, to promote creativity and social innovation in sectors ranging from the cultural and creative industry to spaces of collaboration and innovative public tenders, thanks to the enhancement of regional smart specialization policies and practices. Structuring the capitalization of the results of the modular project composing the community, the Social and Creative project is now working on community building, transferring and capitalizing activities with the twin aim of building a shared sense of purpose within the community and promoting implementation and transferability of results through exemplary policy innovation trials. The Social and Creative community considers creativity and the social innovation as forces capable of bringing prosperity and well-being to the Mediterranean area, but also a solid opportunity to involve the migratory phenomenon in the metaphor of the sustainability of diversity, which is the driving force able to pass from a participatory process, living labs are an example, to a political process, policymaking 4.0, where the strengthening of skills, responsibility, and collective integration can exploit the beneficial effects for the economy, business, and the new youth entrepreneurship. Thanks to the involvement of the outstanding experts who are with us this morning, the sharing of the experiences of successful open innovation cases and the identification of the most significant challenges that the cultural and creative industries have to face, we will try to understand how to connect the potential of creative industries with old and new markets. Today's first episode of the Innovation Camp will then go on in the afternoon when 3 focus groups will take place. During these dynamic and participatory workshops, we will explore how methodologies, tools, and services designed and developed in past modular projects to tackle specific issues can support future policies in other places with similar challenges. In essence, we will try to understand the potential for these tools and methods for a greater impact and the feasibility to be adapted and implemented in other places. Our hope is that these innovation camps we are organizing in the framework of the social and creative community can be an important opportunity for the stakeholders participating in the event to learn about innovative solutions and expand their network with other professionals who are facing similar challenges, exchange experiences, and explore opportunities for the future partnership. Well, I'm done from my side. I thank you again for being here, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will get back. Thank you so much for the introduce Marino Crescenzo. And now we can start. Let's go with our speakers. The first speaker is Marcel Bogers. I hope my pronunciation is correct. As a professor in Open Collaborative Innovation at Eindhoven University of Technology. He will explain us about the short overview of what they know about the open innovation and what are important areas for the future research and practice this main. So, welcome, Professor Bogers.
Thank you so much. And the pronunciation was very good. So thanks for that.
Okay. Anyway, I have a secret because I spent 1 year in Holland. So
okay, so you're cheating. You're cheating actually, but still, it was very, very fine. Thanks so much. Well, thanks for the introduction. Let me also share my my slides I have here. Should be this one. Let's see. This should be it. So I think I'm looking at the screen, and I think the slide is visible, and I'm there on the side as well. So let me start. Yeah, thank you so much for this introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually. Yeah, so indeed, my name is Marcel Bogers. I am a professor at Eindhoven University of Technology. I've been invited to tell you a little bit about open innovation from a research perspective, as a concept that I think has resonated a lot with industry and practice and policy as well. So I just want to give a bit of an overview. What do we know roughly about this concept, and where may we go in terms of research and practice as well. So that is my aim for today. Just a few more words about myself. So indeed, currently working in Eindhoven, the University of Technology, where I did originally study, but I also took a little detour. I did my PhD in Switzerland at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, and also spent more than 10 years working at different universities in Denmark, and also had the pleasures of some visiting positions in Italy as well, which always was a great pleasure. I'm very much looking forward to being there in person, hopefully someday soon. My main research domain is open innovation, which I have studied from, say, different perspectives and different levels of analysis, ranging from individual level micro foundations to business models to ecosystems. And what I like about the introduction that we just heard is that also, you know, the importance of thinking about open and collaborative innovation in the context of grand societal challenges is also very important. So I'm happy to hear about that interest as well. So when I talk about open innovation, I often like to start with this one quote here, which basically for me, it's quite a strong way of talk about the importance of openness in innovation processes. So when you look at Henry Chesbrough's original book in 2003, somewhere in the back in the footnote, there's this quote hidden, which says, "Not all the smart people in the world work for us." And I think it's a very strong quote because even, no matter how innovative you are as an organization, there's still so many smart people out there, who could actually somehow contribute to your innovation process as well. So if I look at one example here, it's one of the early examples of Procter & Gamble. It's one of my favorite examples, and I'll say in a minute why that is so, which was an example where the story goes that basically in Procter & Gamble, they had this Pringles product, as you can see on the picture there, where basically the idea from a marketing area was, well, wouldn't it be nice if we can print like text or cartoons on this product, which, I think is a somehow nice idea, and people would be interested in buying that and so on. However, it turned out that from a research and development and R&D perspective, it was actually quite tricky to do that. You can imagine, of course, it has to be, it's an edible product, so you cannot just print anything on that product there. So they were trying to find a solution, but apparently weren't quite able to do so. And instead of abandoning the idea and putting it on the shelf, they actually decided to reach out to their external partners and networks to see, is there somebody out there who can maybe help us solve this problem? And it turned out that there was indeed a university professor in Bologna, actually, who also owned a bakery, who basically had a solution to this problem. He had already solved the problem, which meant that Procter & Gamble could sort of insource that solution for a fraction of the cost and time it would have cost them otherwise to do it by themselves. And the reason why this is one of my favorite examples, I mean, in this context, I think it's nice. It's the solution is coming from, first of all, from Italy, and then also from a university professor. So it means that sometimes we do have some other societal value as well. But mainly, of course, it's a nice example because it really shows the importance of reaching out to the smart people out there and the power of open innovation in that sense. Just a quick other example, which I like to mention as I worked several years in Denmark, is Lego, the toy company, where one early example is the Mindstorms product, which is basically a robot toolkit with combined hardware software, where it turned out that the users were starting, when they launched the products, users started to hack into the product, and not the kids, which was maybe the primary market initially, but also adult fans of Lego, as we call them now. And in the end, Lego was not quite sure how to react to this kind of development, but they decided to embrace it. And I think it also shaped their open innovation trajectory by embracing the power of the community. A more recent example is Lego IDs, basically a crowdsourcing platform where anybody with a good idea for a Lego product can submit it, and there's a whole process of voting, and then ultimately the really good ideas get evaluated and selected and actually produced. And a lot of fun examples on the website in case you're interested as well. Final example is from Philips, as I move back to Eindhoven here in my home country, the Netherlands, which is also a very good example of a company that has really embraced open innovation explicitly. They say, for example, on the one hand, they do inside out, or what you may call outbound open innovation. So they use their skills and resources and make them available to the world in terms of facility support, but also very much about intellectual property licensing. So leveraging the IP that you have in order to find external commercialization opportunities. They also engage in what they call outside in or inbound open innovation, which is really about drawing on the capacities of individuals, organizations, and even small startups, as they write, around the globe. So it's really about leveraging the capacity of all the smart people out there and use it to accelerate your own innovation process. Now, what that looks like in a kind of a model, we often depict open innovation as this funnel model, where we basically say, on the one hand, you can do like what Philips did, have the sort of the inside out process where you say, well, we have a lot of valuable knowledge in-house. Some of it will go to our current market, but some of it does not quite fit. So let's see if we can find external commercialization opportunities, through licensing or in other ways, finding partners, external partners to commercialize, that knowledge that was initially developed in-house, but in a way that is outside of your firm boundaries. At the same time, we also saw Philips and the other examples engaging in outside-in open innovation, which is basically about leveraging all the external ideas, knowledge, technologies, and using them to accelerate your own innovation process. And in some cases, including companies like Philips, really use a combination of these different modes of open innovation by combining knowledge inflows and outflows, for example, in alliances and other co-creation types of efforts. So in terms of defining open innovation, my definition would be that it's very much about distributed innovation process. So again, all the smart people out there, but in a way that organizations need to manage the knowledge flowing across their organizational boundaries. So knowledge inflows, knowledge outflows, for which they use different kinds of mechanisms. So pecuniary and non-pecuniary means sometimes, it may be about, selling licenses or rewarding a particular idea, but it may also be non-pecuniary. Sometimes you may freely reveal some of your knowledge because you think it will benefit you in other ways. Or sometimes you may also offer other types of benefits, like in the Lego case, which does have a monetary reward, but also, I think you would just be happy if your design is selected, of course. Now, and all of this needs to be in line with the organization business model. So in very simple terms, one way of looking at it, so if you compare a closed versus an open business model, on the one hand, it would be about creating new revenue streams. If you go to an open business model, licensing, spinning off firms, and so on. And on the other hand, it would be about leveraging, external developments and thereby saving cost and time in your innovation process. Now, this, of course, sounds all very good and nice. You may think, well, is there no limits to it? Well, of course, there are also limits to this. And in fact, it's quite a well-known finding in our research that in a way, if you look, for example, at the outside-in or inbound process of open innovation, it's very well established that, to some extent, if you reach out to more external sources of knowledge for your innovation process, initially your innovation performance goes up, but at some point it starts to go down again because it's, for example, just too much to manage all those external sources. So there's an optimal point. So it also means that there are some limits in how, to what extent this works. Now, on that kind of basis, we also been looking at, okay, how can we actually understand this process of open innovation? And from that, we developed this open innovation process model where we basically have also seen, in practical examples and in the research, that there are these different phases in which organizations can engage when they open up, to external sources of knowledge, which goes from first obtaining the knowledge from outside and integrating it into the organization's own innovation processes, and ultimately, of course, commercializing it in order to implement it and benefit from it. So just to give you a few points about what this is all about, what we also know from the literature. In this first phase, it's very much about the examples that I mentioned, right? Like with Lego, Procter & Gamble, Philips, and there are many other ones, of course. Where it's really about how do you find this external information? How do you search for it? You need to source it, make sure you have mechanisms to filter the right ideas from maybe the bad ones, and then finding ways to acquire the knowledge from outside. Now, there are many different kinds of tools and toolkits, crowdsourcing platforms and those kinds of things, and we know quite a bit about it. And there are many ways to engage with external sources. But what you often see also in organizations is that just opening up the boundaries is really only half of the story. The difficulties often start when you want to integrate this knowledge that is coming from outside. Now, there may be many issues that are at stake here, but for example, you need to have the right organizational structure to be able to actually integrate the knowledge from the outside. Many organizations still have the kind of silos that may mean you get knowledge out, from the outside in at one part of the organization, but it doesn't really trickle down to the rest of the organization. Or they may have a culture that is actually rejecting ideas from the outside. This is the well-known not invented here syndrome, for example, where the problem really is that, especially in very innovative companies and other organizations, you are supposed to be the one who comes up with the great ideas, and the people working there may actually not be too keen on getting ideas from the outside because they are supposed to be the ones who innovate. So then you really have a kind of a mindset and a culture that rejects those ideas from the outside. And that's, of course, not really facilitating, integrating external ideas, throughout the organization. We also know that the notion of absorptive capacity is very important. So you need to have prior knowledge in order to understand the knowledge that's coming in from the outside. So this is, of course, also important. So you still need to have a way in which you can actually connect knowledge coming from the outside to your internal processes. And there are many, there are several other capabilities that you need to think about. How does it fit with an open innovation model? Along the same lines, when you have a commercialization process, that requires particular capabilities. It's kind of still open question if you ask me, also based on the literature, what are the specific capabilities you need to commercialize internally or externally developed innovations. So I think that is still an important question and something to consider in terms of how do those kinds of capabilities actually allow you to also benefit from open innovation compared to a more closed innovation logic, so to say. A key element here really is this notion of business model. So it's really the logic or the framework that an organization uses to create and capture value. And obviously in an open innovation world, it's not only you who's creating the value, you're creating value together with others, but you're also sharing the value that is being captured across different stakeholders. So it's a different kind of logic, and it really needs to fit with this overall process. Now, this is kind of the overview that I wanted to sketch, and also highlight that, well, you may also consider that this is a nice linear model, but of course in practice, there are more interactions, especially in kind of a co-creation or when you work with communities. Also in the organization, it's not always a fully linear model, so it's a very dynamic thing, and that's, I think, also something that is important to remember. Also when we do our research on this topic, but also when we want to implement open innovation models in practice to understand the complexity of that. Another element of the complexity that I wanted to highlight is the fact that I talk very much now about open innovation at the organizational level, but we also need to consider that open innovation matters across different units of analysis. So we can talk about the organization and the business model and so on, but it's also very important to think about what is actually happening inside the organization. What is the role of the individuals? How do individual employees, for example, their characteristics matter in the way that the organization or the firm can be open and benefit from openness. And the same for other issues, like how do you set up innovation projects? What about the organization in terms of functional areas and business units? How does it facilitate or hamper the organization to be open? Plus, I think we need to look beyond the organization by considering, well, what are actually the external stakeholders that play a role in open innovation? What about the networks and ecosystems that we engage in? And even thinking about, the industry, like in this context, very much also the cultural creative industries, which has particular characteristics which are different from other industries. So what does it mean for the extent to which and the way in which open innovation works better or worse? And similarly for different kinds of regions, of course, in the Interact context, I think also very important, because the region also really matters as a sort of, a conditional factor that determines, the way in which open innovation may work better or worse. And even reaching out to more sort of societal level in terms of, government, but also citizen involvement, public policy in general, and even the societal challenges that were also raised, I think, a little bit in the introduction, are all issues that you need to consider in order to understand the full picture of what open innovation is and how it may matter. So from that, we also started to develop, a research agenda to think about what are really the issues that are useful to think about in the future. So where is this research maybe going? Just a few examples here are that on the one hand, when you look at also individual level characteristics, thinking about behavior and cognition are important issues that we need to consider in order to understand not only how individuals are open for innovation, but then how does it link to the organizational level openness. We also need to think about the role of strategy and design in terms of business models and entrepreneurial opportunities. We need to understand the role of the particular stakeholders, such as communities and users that are involved in open innovation processes. I think the ecosystem is a very important unit of analysis, both in general, understanding how collection or a network of different partners can actually co-create a value proposition in a way they cannot do independently. But that also has implications for what kind of platforms, digital platforms, crowd-based platforms that you can actually use to implement open innovation. Plus, I think the final point here is that I think we can really look beyond, think about issues like open governance in terms of the role of government, smart cities, other regional initiatives that play a role in this kind of way. Then just to summarize some of this, I would say that when we want to look at open innovation, I think we need to understand some of the complexity and see how we can connect some of the dots. So when we look at an organization as trying to implement open innovation, we know on the one hand that it's important to think about some of the structural elements, such as the organization design and other characteristics of the firm, but also the dynamics of the innovation process as such, which is something that will also develop over time, which then on the one hand has links to what are the characteristics of the organization, for example, individual level or other intra-organizational issues that will affect the openness of the organization on the one hand, and on the other hand, we need to think about how is this all embedded in the broader value network, the broader ecosystem, or even beyond in terms of industry, regional context. How does it link to the larger challenges we want to address? And this is quite a complex set of factors, of course, which is a challenge, but the opportunity then also lies in how we can understand this complexity and link these elements across different levels of analysis to really implement sort of a holistic and integrative process in which open innovation can indeed benefit stakeholders across these different levels, also across different industries. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. I hope this gave a nice overview of some of the elements of what open innovation is and where we are going from a research perspective, but where I also think in practice we need to go in order to create a better situation for different stakeholders and society at large. So that's it for me. Thank you again for your attention, and I'm looking forward in case there are any questions.
Yes, there is one question for you, Professor. I am reading: intellectual property can be a limit to open innovation. How to overcome this limit? This is a good question.
Good question, yes.
Yeah.
So the question basically is about intellectual property and the fact it can be a limit for open innovation, but how it may help to facilitate the process. I think that's a little bit my interpretation of the question. I think it's a very good question. So intellectual property indeed can play a very important role. So let me first of all highlight that open innovation is not necessarily meaning that you give away everything for free in a sense. So when you look at an organization, the point is really, and this is why the business model is so important, the point is really what is the logic in which you want to create and capture value, and what role does intellectual property play in that process? So in some ways, part of the model may be that you want to protect particular parts of your intellectual property through patents or other IPs, but you may also be able to say, give away part of it or license part of it, or of course you can license in particular technologies that you need in order to develop your own innovation process. If I may just give one example, which I think illustrates this quite well, which is quite well known, of course, is Tesla. Tesla had announced at some point that they give away their patents for free. Of course, a patent already means that the knowledge is freely available. That's the kind of definition of a patent. But what they basically said is people can use these inventions to develop their own products, which is on one hand giving away some of your knowledge for free, but on the other hand, the whole purpose here is to create a larger ecosystem that is also beneficial for Tesla and the type of products that they want to sell. So sometimes it can even help if to give access to some of these things, even to your competitors, if you are, for example, trying to establish kind of a new industry, which essentially is what's happening in that case. So yes, it's very much a balance in terms of leveraging intellectual property, but also using it for those core elements that you do want to protect.
Okay, so your answer is balance, because anyway, some enterprise or researcher giving us the innovation they must protect, because for them it's a work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Another question, Professor. How to include social innovation in open innovation models, generating sharing value on local level?
Yeah, I think that's another great question. So, I'm not sure if I fully understand all the elements, but I think the point is that social innovation. In the way I think about it is also the fact that it has to do with the broader purpose of a particular innovation or a set of innovations that have also social value. So, and the way I would look at it is that I think open innovation is actually a useful framework for considering also social innovation, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is it also often involves a collection of actors, so different kinds of stakeholders that need to come together in order to create a social innovation. So in that sense, a more open and collaborative innovation model will support that type of innovation, but indeed it has to be managed in a way that it's also grounded in individual level characteristics of the people that actually work with it within different organizations, and also outside of organizations in the broader society, so to say. So that's a matter of bringing together those different stakeholders in a way that process is managed, that all these levels are also aligned.
Okay, Prof. Another question for you. So it's very interesting, your argument. So are there any specific barriers when open innovation applied to social industry?
Yeah, I was afraid that question would come. I think, of course, it's a very relevant one. I think in a way, what I also tried to explain is that each industry has its particular characteristics that will indeed have certain facilitating issues and some hampering factors or some barriers, as was asked about. So the general answer is yes. I think each industry will have its own characteristics that will also imply particular barriers. Then, of course, the more specific answer to the question is, I'm not as such expert on the industry as such, but I would imagine there are particular characteristics that play a role. I personally think that one element may be that the role of business model, which I think is quite central in the notion of open innovation, has maybe a different meaning in that industry, and it may be sometimes more difficult to find models in which different stakeholders can also capture part of the value that is maybe also co-created. So I think that could be one element to better understand, what does business model even mean, and also in context where people don't even call it a business model, but there's always a logic of creating and capturing value. I can imagine that because the type of value that is created is not always easy to express, for example, in monetary terms, maybe longer processes that are needed. I think that makes it difficult to create a model in which it's also clear how you can actually capture part of that value when you are working together on developing a certain value proposition in that context.
Okay, how you can develop open innovation-based alliances within the social and creative industry to be profitable for all stakeholders?
Okay, that sounds like a big question. can you maybe repeat it?
How we can develop open innovation basic talents within the social and creative industry to be profitable for the stakeholders.
Okay, yeah. I needed you to repeat it because I think a lot of elements in this question, you know. I think it's very difficult to answer because I mean there are so many factors that are at stake, you know, when you want to develop profitable business models. I think when I kind of think back of what I try to present and how I look at open innovation as such, I think one of the points really is the challenge to align all those different parts of the process and the different sort of levels of analysis. That is, of course, again, a generic question, so it's difficult to answer it in a very specific way because there are so many particular characteristics, you know, in any industry and in parts of the industry, and it depends on the organizations. But I think the starting point of the answer would be to really think about, you know, what is the business model? So what is the way in which you want to create and capture value? How can you do that together in a kind of an ecosystem or network way of thinking? So I think one part of the answer may be to think about not only from specific individuals or organizations, but think about what individuals and organizations, you know, want to do, how that aligns with the level in which the different stakeholders want to work together. So if you have a more like an ecosystem or network perspective, you really need to think about not only what is in it for me, but what is in it for somebody else. What are certain capabilities that I have? What are certain capabilities that others have that they can bring to the table in a way that we can jointly create something that we cannot do by ourselves? So thinking about, you know, that in a more collective way is, I think, one step towards answering the question, but it's a big question. So there are many elements that will be at stake.
So we can resume the model is just one refer, but you just study where you are and have a connection with the person, and so you can building the innovation.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point because it's also very much about considering what you have, combining that with where you want to go. And I think in that combination, I think this is where you can find the strength. Yeah.
Okay, the last one question is very institution are key in open innovation processes for society. What do you give example for successful experience where institutions have had a key role, and what stage was it key? Where shall institution role and provide initiative start?
Okay. You have very tough questions, I have to say, but I think really good ones. I think the question is a little bit about an example of a more institution that has somehow successfully launched some sort of open innovation initiative, if I get it right, or summarize it. Yeah, I mean, I think you can also interpret the question in different ways. I do think one, and it depends a little bit what you mean by institutions, but I suppose one angle here may be to think about different types of, I mean, not only sort of, for-profit organizations, but also other types of organizations, and even, governments. That could be one way to look at institutions. I'm not quite sure if that is the actual question here, but I mean, one example could be, for example, in the region where I live now in Eindhoven, which is very much a very strong ecosystem in the sort of high-tech context, where, if that is a question from an institutional point of view, there are really efforts in terms of, aligning all the different partners, try to link that to national policies, and have, just a process in which different stakeholders are connected and can sort of innovate together in a way that they also start to create new things. and there are other examples that, that would be about also, governments having certain, citizen sourcing is one concept you could mention in terms of involving citizens in sort of, decision-making processes. Those could be other examples, if that is a question then.
Okay, Professor, you are so fantastic, because they are going the other question, but the time is the time when there are the events. So you receive also the compliment for the follower in these events.
Thank you.
Anyway, you often say the ecosystem. So maybe when you speak in innovation, you just look around and take the advancement and realize the model can represent the ecosystem. So there isn't a fixed model, but just an interaction with the person, and especially the different culture, because if the team have different person, different inside, you can create something new. Is the result, they work all the team for the same goal. So innovation, creative innovation.
Exactly.
Professor, okay, thank you so much. I am a good student, I hope. Thank you for your presentation, for your time. And now I know you have another appointment now, so you must leave. And have a good day.
Yeah, thank you so much, and a great day to everybody, and have a nice event. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye
Bye from Italy.
Yeah, bye.
Okay. Now we have the pleasure of listening to the roundup of success story of open innovation applied to the field creative and the social innovation. So we have here, hola Francisco Javier. Buenos días, Fran.
Fran, it's okay.
Fran, it's okay, vale.
Yeah.
Yo hablo un poquito de español y ahora lo digo. Vale, stop. Okay, welcome, Fran. I just to say I read your project, and I must to stop to read one time, because it's not easy what you create. It's included a different frame and emotion. So we can say, I reassume, no? And say, you tell me it's correct or not. It's a place, the foundation, La Fura delles Baus, is a place of knowledge and the mutual learning, based, we can say, the sum up of the talents and a collaboration and the creation. The foundation, what done? Promote the laboratory and horizontal collaboration between humanity, science, and technology. That's correct, or just missing something? Of course, some things are missing, but you represent your project.
It's correct. Yeah, it's a new renaissance.
Wow. Okay.
So, okay, thank you very much for the introduction. I will share my screen, and I will try to fit in the 10 minutes. Okay, as you said,
okay.
It's a complex project, so I will do my best. I will, of course, leave some information, but in any case, you will have my contact or whatever. So
excuse me. Just I remember the follower. There is the English and the Italiano interpretation is available. It just is in the bottom screen near the icon chat. There is right interpretation. So if that's it. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm Francisco Iglesias. I am the general manager of the Epica Foundation La Fura dels Baus. I will have to explain a little bit of the story of how we arrived to that in order to explain what we are doing now. So I will do my best. So the EPICA Foundation, it's a non-profit foundation founded by La Fura dels Baus, that the patrons, maybe you already know La Fura dels Baus. La Fura dels Baus, it's a 40 years old performing arts company, still considered avant-garde, so that's a bit crazy. So to be considered avant-garde after 40 years, it's something strange. But this is based because they always try to merge science, technology, and arts in a way to keep growing and keep advancing and be always disruptive on the way they face the new challenges and everything. And I think that this is the main legacy we got in the foundation. So the way to do from La Fura dels Baus, of course, the network and everything, but this kind of way of thinking on how to merge different talent. And I like the phrase of Pep Gatey, that it's our president of the foundation, that they always say that they always sum up different talents in order to do bigger things than you. That's really amazing. And we are trying to create something like a new renaissance where we are able to put together, but in an horizontal collaboration, this science, technology, and humanities in an open innovation, because at the end, everything should be able to participate and to work. So the foundation, as you said, we are trying to merge cultural and creative industries with science and technology. We consider, I think, that the creative and cultural industries are have an important role for research and innovation ecosystems, and this is quite important because until now, sometimes, if you see the SDGs, then now you will see plenty of different verticals, and then they say culture is horizontal. Sometimes that means nothing. I mean, so when you say that something is horizontal, it's something like that you are there. And no, I think that the cultural and creative industries may have a strong role on these new challenges, and because they are also a common language for society. So I mean, these big challenges, global challenges, should be faced from the whole society, and culture and creativity should be there because we are something like a glue where we are able to put all together. So as I told you, we are trying to do a new renaissance, and I think that this is the key thing. So why performing arts as the vehicle for fostering research and innovation? Because these global challenges has really difficult solutions. So by using performing arts and especially La Fura language, that I really like because it's really invasive, I mean, you are able to create whatever fake experience perceived like real for the audience. That this is so important. I always put the same example, but I really like it. 4 or 5 workshops ago, the deputy mayor of the city of Badalona, where we are here, come running to me and say, "Hey, Fran, should I call the police or is everything controlled?" And I say, no, it's control. I mean, this is what should happen, and this is quite good. I mean, this is amazing because at the end, the reactions of the people were real. So if you want them to be afraid, you can do it. If you want them to be happy, and when I was listening, Professor Vogel, he talked about cognitive. This is important for us. For example, in our experience, we try to work. Even yesterday, we launched our first paper in cognitive neuroscience in a scientific publication. That's perfect because we were able to create fake experience where to validate neuroscientific science, and we will create this experience with the people. I mean, the people were the element of study, but also the creators of the experience. So in this way, you are able to do plenty of different things. You are able to transfer knowledge to society because you put together a really high reputed neuroscientist with the people together to create this kind of experience. And then you put the civil society inside to understand why neuroscientists is important for them. So, and in these kind of things, in these kind of cycles, you are able to really create these ecosystems for mutual learning. Why mutual learning? Because at the end, we always try to promote open innovation or innovation by merging different talents. But I think that the key element that we have here in the foundation, that it's really La Fura style, is that we put a neuroscientist, we put a an expert on computer vision, Fernando, that will give you the talk. It's one of our members of our Wise Council. We put a lot of different talents, but also we put a clown, and also we put creatives, and also we put people, and then together they are talking about something that it's not really your main skill. And then it's a space where you are able to say what you think and not to say what you know, because you are not talking about neuroscience anymore, but you can contribute with your neuroscientific knowledge to the fake reality and to the creation. And this is quite amazing, because in this way you see how people learn from each other and how the knowledge is transferred inside the group. We also even did a publication on philosophy with a doctor in philosophy that he was studying how the knowledge was transferred inside the group. Because at the end, the idea is to create a lot of ideas from these processes. And then the good thing is that when you create a fake reality by using performing arts, it has a lot of different advantage. The first one is that it's risk-free. So when we explode a bomb, it's controlled. Nobody will be hurt, but people is afraid. But this is good, because the reactions and the emotions and the experiences are real, but it's risk-free. So nothing happens. Also, it's another important thing in the innovation. It's if something does not work, nobody will notice, because it's a show.
It's correct.
Nobody knows what's going to happen. So if you are trying to develop a new emergency systems automated where the door should be open and the door does not open, it's okay. Nobody will know. And then your image as a company, or your image as a research institution, or your image as an administration will not get damaged, because nobody will notice. Only you that has been working for this solution for a lot of time will be a bit frustrated because it's not working, but it's risk-free. And then the third important thing is it's iterable. So if today it's not working, we can try tomorrow again with different people. And then you can iterate and you can fine-tune your solution. And this is quite important. This is quite important because it's really open up these kind of things. Because as, for example, Michelangelo did in the Renaissance, or even Julio Verne, when drawing the submarine, if now you want to create a fake reality, so we have a 4,000 square meters here, empty factory, empty. So it can be the airport of Barcelona, or can be La Toscana. You can do it by performing arts. You can create whatever fake experience, but in order to create something disruptive, you need a lot of different talents to really create it. And also, we use the same method for doing research and development. We work with neuroscientists, with philosophers, with computer vision, with artificial intelligence, with plenty of different really research and development skills. We also do it for residences, of course. One of our aims is to give tools to the creative sector and the artist sectors, but in this way. So we think that it's not fair to give last century technologies to the artists and ask them to do something new. We need to put artists with new technologies together. I mean, not try in order to create a fair scenario for them. So give them tools to do something, and then they will be able. As an example, for example, I'm the general manager of the EPICA Foundation, and I am a telecommunication engineer. I was working in Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, in ITUCAT Foundation here. So I came from the pure research, and now I'm managing a foundation from La Fura dels Baus. So this is the example that we want to really merge these worlds of science, technology, and humanities in a real way. So I discussed with Pep Gatei, that is the president and the founder of La Fura, and we discuss in a non-consultant way. So this is important. And also today, because we are talking about social and creative, I will focus on only one example, that it's the social one, because the same process works for whatever vertical you want to apply. And then I will just talk about EPICA Singular. EPICA Singular, it's one of our projects that we do for social inclusion.
Fran, excuse me, just one question before you show us your example, EPICA Singular. Mm-hmm. But when or who thought about this format, no? Because you have included on the one in this project different target or person, or have different skills, and you also thought about the dissemination science. okay? And so, I suppose you use the easy language, the language correct for the society, because the most problem for university and society is in the middle. How I can transfer my know through my website, I don't know, the journal, but it's not easy to connect, no?
Yes.
So my question is, who thought about this format?
Well, this is our method. I mean, we create this method in order to really combine and to try to fit this gap. And for example, now we just got a European project for doing the European Researchers Night, and we focus on this pain point. I will try to explain. Yeah, the knowledge transfer between science and society is in both sides. The problem is that normally scientists think that civil society will never understand them, and then they have a lot of things to do and don't want to go down and try to explain. They know that they have to, but they are a bit frustrated because normally when they try to, nobody will react to that. And as an example, if we ask our neighborhood here, that it's an old neighborhood, that we are doing a neuroscientist workshop, I've never meet anyone that say this is bullshit. So everybody says, oh, this is really nice, it's important, but they will never come. Because they consider that they are not at the level of neuroscientists. So this is something for an elite. And then the problem is that you have an empty room or a room full of neuroscientists. That again, it's not solving the problem because it's an endogamic process. So, but the other way around is exactly the same. So society thinks that science, it's okay. I mean, it should be there, but this is something different. So what we are doing is we are trying to create experiences. So that's really good. Because while creating this experience, we solve these both problems. So we invite our neighborhood to an experience, to a show. They will take fun. They will enjoy. They will participate. They will be afraid. They will be happy. They will be in a real show, and also they will learn about science. It's a good balance, you know. And we told the same to the scientists. So when they participate with us, they are not only transferring knowledge, that of course culture and creativity is something like super easy to transfer knowledge, it's a common language for the society, but they will experiment in the show. So that's the important. So for us, to do a performance or to do a show, it's not the mission. The mission is to create this experience where to validate science and technology. So that's important because in this way, their return, let's say, it's much better. So they came here and they give us a lot of knowledge and they participate actively because they want something back. The easy example is the neuroscientists. They want to validate their theory on how people react to different impacts. Okay, then they need to give us knowledge in order to create this experience for them, where they will be able to gather data from the audience. In this way, both sides win. I mean, scientists can publicate new papers and can validate their theories, and the civil society is having fun and it's enjoying, and also the kids are learning science. That's perfect. So this is the right way that we are trying to find here. For example, one of the main differences that I always discuss with Pep, our president, for the first time when we had a really high reputed expert that came here and want to play with us, I always ask them, what do you want? And if they don't want anything, they cannot participate, because we need to demonstrate that we are valuable. So if you, with your expertise, want to join us, that's perfect, but you need to have something back. If not, it will be an ephemeral collaboration. But only if you are gathering something for you, this collaboration is horizontal, and then you also want this to be successful. And in this way, we are creating this environment where everybody, in our last workshop, we had in 30, then we always do an open call for creatives. For us creatives, everybody, I mean, everybody can be a creative. And we had, for example, 30 participants, and we had from a molecular bioengineer to a clown. But during the creation process, they are equal. And in this way, the transfer of knowledge, it's much more horizontal. And then in this way, yesterday, for example, we did a talk with the neuroscientist because we were launching the publication. And that was nice to listen him that he said that he was coming back to the beginning with us, because suddenly a bunch of people asked him the right questions that normally he was not able to see in their silo. So, and in this way, you are able to even re-ask your own questions and then face in a different way your research. Of course, our mission here is to create a lot of ideas, not to solve anything. Anything is solved here, but a lot of things start here. And the good thing is that for all participants, normally the result is different. So what is important for you, for me, it doesn't mind, and vice versa. That's the important thing of this kind of really innovation ecosystems. And in this way, even we are able to solve this APR, because at the end, we are collaborating for doing something that is not really for you and for me, but both with different interests. And this works really, really good. And when we're doing for social, and I was trying to explain, this is really important, because when we, for example, we found that these young people that has a lot of problems, at least here in Spain, that they think that they have no possibilities to find a job or to go back to school or whatever, the first thing you have to do is to show them that they are not useless. They consider themselves useless. That's the problem. So when giving them the chance to create something and to show it to their families and to their friends and whatever, they suddenly discover that they are not useless anymore. So they can do something new. And then in this way, sorry, we had really good results. And then I think that my 10 minutes just went out.
Just you, I am so curious. Okay, your contact information.
Don't worry, yeah.
So what you doing in Spain, it's very, very fantastic. So is the moment for the question. So if there are a question from somebody, please tell me no. Just like say at Anna, the friends, it's already done, the presentation to finish. So we can go another presentation, because there is Susan Bolesvik. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct. I mean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's not perfect, but
it's okay.
It's okay, of course. We don't bother with the. Well, I suppose I can share my screen.
Yes.
It's done, I hope.
Yes, we are going in Croatia now,
yes,
and discovery urban regeneration, experience sustainability, and also community throughout to work.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Please.
We can start with the conclusion. It's also about creating the ecosystem, but let's say in the kind of a different space than it was mentioned before. Well, we can start with the fact that also this part that I will talk about is part of the legacy of the European Capital of Culture that Rijeka was last year, and with extension to this year due to the COVID pandemic. And of course, well, I'll move a bit back. Rijeka is a city that is center of Croatian North Adriatic region, so it's close to Slovenia and Italy, with a space of 44 square kilometers and 128 citizens. And here I'll continue with the, let's say, three main themes about European Capital of Culture, because now we are dealing with the legacy of European Capital of Culture. Of course, it was hugely hit by the pandemic, that program part of the ECOC. But
excuse me.
Yes.
Could you use the full screen mode, please?
Yes. Now.
Okay.
Yes. Well, the programs are and the new spaces are part of the ECOC legacy, and in the future we will have to deal with all that novelties. One of the parts that is, I suppose, interesting also for this workshop is that a lot of is done within the urban regeneration, because this cultural district that is renovated, we are still waiting for the library to be finished. It's the largest cultural project in Croatia. We are talking about a really big post-industrial block in the city center, and from now on it will be center of culture and art. Here we already have museums, we will have a library, and of course we will have a children's house. And it solves a lot of problems because, as I said at the beginning, we don't have much space as the city. It's only 44 square kilometers. So it's more than important to use all the possibilities in which we can, let's say, develop some new spaces. When we are talking about this project, it's a children's house. In these two pictures, you can see how did it look at the beginning. It was a really devastating building. And with this project, well, let's say the main purpose was how to move from the building to the house. And I hope we are quite well in this. It's now finished, as you can see in this picture below. And you can see also that it was funded through the city budget, national budget, and European funds. And it also became a house for several city institutions. And of course, some NGOs, etc., etc. So it is interesting because all the time we are talking about the innovations, about the ecosystem, and for us as a city, this is innovation, because not only in Rijeka but in a lot of cities, it's quite hard to get different kinds of institutions to work together. And by sharing the same space, and not only the space but the programs, that become let's say in our case social and management innovation, let's say. But Besides city institutions, also civil sector will take part in the management of this children's house, and among them is Bencic Youth Council. And here I will try to, let's say, summarize why this project is of interest, and why we like to think about this project as innovative one. Because here we have it's open, but it was opened a month ago, but then closed due to the measures linked to the pandemic. But from Monday it will be reopened again. Well, it's the first place where we can get together the children or the whole social group of people, and in this building they can do things, they can read, they can watch something. That we will have laboratories for sound and film. As it is first children's cinema in Croatia. We have a lot of open spaces, meaning for different kinds of gathering, workshops, etc. So we have new space, we have different programs. I already mentioned that we have a comprehensive collaboration in here between Art Kino, City Puppet Theater, and the City Library. And for us, it is important as this project in a way defines a model for creative interventions in other educational institutions. So I hope that we can, let's say, move this model to another social groups except for the children, and apply it in different kind of collaborations. And one important thing is that all of mentioned institutions, that they already work, and we already have a kind of programs that will continue to live in this new building. We have some festivals, named Toboggan, for different kind of children's creativity. So it's not, we are not starting from the scratch in this building. So we have defined programs, etc. And we hope that also the possibility to share the space will enhance in every way already existing projects and programs. And of course, we hope that this kind of project will enhance in a way participation for the future times, because also due to the COVID, we have a lot of problems in let's say active citizenship, and we hope that with this project we will also strengthen that part of the city. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing this photo, I would love to see this place. So one day I will go in your city to visiting this fantastic place. And so let's continue with the presentation. a success story. Now is the time to Rebecca Furley from the UK. She will show us one project where they give a second life to waste. The materials will be optimized to work in circular social context. Please show us your interesting project. You have mute. Professor, you have mute.
Yes, just kicking my husband out of the room. Sorry about that. Great.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for such an interesting event. I've learned so much already this morning, and it's great to be here. And it's a real privilege to be able to present on behalf of the Hereware project to look at social and circular bio-fashion and what we're doing. So let's just go straight into it. So from a fashion and textile perspective, there's so much that needs to change if we are to meet climate targets and really sort of shift away from mass production models and exporting and importing great distances. Bringing clothing and textiles together across continents has a huge impact on the environment. And so the Hereware project is all about creating these regional, localized loops where we're aiming to make clothing from bio-based waste, so from agricultural waste like manure and seaweed, making these fibers and then creating clothes that stay in circulation and use for a long time, moving between different consumers and users before eventually being recycled then in a local context. So the vision is very much about these local, regional, bio-based economies. And the big part of that is how consumers will take part in this and enjoy fashion in radical new ways. And it's really important that we do look at fashion in a completely different way. It's not possible for us to continue to buy and use and consume clothes in the way that we have been. And if we're to look at the way in which the planet has been exploited in order to meet our vociferous needs for new clothes and new looks, we can see that we've got to change the systems, the linear, optimized, super fast systems, in order to stay within the kind of limits and that has been recommended. And for that, we also need new economic models, new socio-economic models. And so this is really where open innovation and social innovation, meeting design and new materials within a circular economy context could be really a really viable solution for us. So first of all, let's have a look at the materials, because these are at the moment, global production of fashion and textiles, the fiber group is 89% of all global fibers are either cotton or synthetics from oil-based resources, and both have a really heavy footprint. So making clothes, making fashion textiles from our waste streams is a really important area of development within the EU and much more broadly, of course. But how we use these materials is also really important, because we can't go to the effort of making these materials, developing these new circular systems and loops in order for us to just have fashion and use fashion in the way that we are now, which is rapid and fast and wasteful. So what we're trying to do is work with, from the consumer's point of view, with clothing concepts that will offer a greater lifespan and more diversity in terms of how they can be worn and then repaired and reworn and recirculated before they finally get recycled. So one of the partners in the project that we're working with, Maybean, are running an organization which brings people together to work with clothes to recirculate them. So firstly, through their setup, which involves a workshop and a cafe space and a gallery space and a garden, people come together and make opportunities to exchange and to swap and to rotate wardrobes, as well as learn how to repair and learn how to remake and alter clothes. Maybe also sourcing waste from factories and ensuring that the surplus of materials that are produced in factory production, so pre-consumer, are used in social innovation projects as well. So really feeding these material waste streams through into new opportunities for young people and entrepreneurs to establish new ways of having clothes. And so it's more than just teaching people about repair and the reuse and the good use of their wardrobes. It's also about looking at open innovation using technology. So working with partners Circular Fashion in Berlin, tagging and digital labeling enables the flow of goods more fully. So it's essential that the information in the materials is passed on through the supply chain. And at the moment, there are blockages and problems. People cut off the label, and the label is the only place really where the information is held that recyclers and future cyclers need to get that information from. So we need to sort of bring this kind of hands-on remaking and reusing of clothes together with new technologies to really enable people to sort of interact and flow the clothes sort of in the right ways. For example, if you take a denim jacket and you want to upcycle it and give it a new look, and then you cover it with a foil or a plastic sequin, you've actually interrupted the viability of that product. You've stopped it being able to be recycled later on. So we need to have this way of sharing the rules and the good habits, and technology is really helping us there. But also in terms of overproduction. So a great amount of waste is coming from producers just making too much stuff. It's cheaper to make stuff at the beginning of the process and then bear the cost of the waste than to go back and reorder and set up production again. So we have this really big overproduction problem. So one way that open innovation is helping with fashion is through crowdsourcing, really putting into production only the number of units that demand has showed is there. So by using crowdsourcing technologies, we're optimizing the way in which clothing goes into production, the volume at which clothing goes into production. So what does all this mean? This means that designers are really thinking differently about their practices. It's so much more about facilitating change and decision-making by others, using their creative skills, using their communication skills to join up the dots and to share the interactions between clothes and materials, and to give people, really to aim to give people more joy and more value from their wardrobes. So this is my last slide, and just to sort of conclude with a look at the future. In the pandemic, we've all experienced clothing and shopping in a very different way. We've had to sort of stop going to the high street, and we've had to stay at home and look back through our wardrobes. And that's given us a moment to pause and to think about how we can have clothes in different ways, what the models are that we can innovate with. And whether that's having more flexible, interactive wardrobes, even within our households, within our shared houses, within our streets, within our neighborhoods, with local charity shops. These flows are all around us, and they're a ground up movement, a radical movement just waiting to really happen. I think we've begun to understand that the future will give us fashion in different ways. We don't have to buy quick and cheap from the high street, that the value for us financially, creatively, and socially will be in how we keep garments moving and circulating between us and meeting these changing needs in a time of economic and environmental pressures. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll follow the Hereware project as it develops. We just started last October, and it's a 4-year project. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your clear presentation. So now let's go the next success story. I just want to say we are receiving different questions for each speaker. When we finish this section, I will read the question, okay? So now is the time for Professor Laura Boffi.
Hi.
Hi, Professor.
I'm not a professor. I'm not a professor.
Ah, okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Shall I share my screen?
Yes.
Cool.
The success story is about the Storyteller project. It's a library service connecting a community of senior readers to children. It's very, very when I was reading this project, I felt in a story, and I asked myself, it's all true?
Yeah, it is. I'm going to tell you the story of this project, so you will understand how it went. Okay, so thanks for having me. I'm Laura Boffi, and I am an interaction and service designer, and I'm based in Italy. Today, I'm going to tell you about the Storytellers project, which started as a design concept and then went on with a pilot. During this presentation, you will learn about what is the concept of the Storytellers project, why the project was created, and then I will describe you the fieldwork and the co-creation sessions and the pilot process. What is the Storytellers project then? It is a service for libraries which connects a community of seniors readers to children and their families for remote yet live reading aloud sessions. It received some co-funds from the European Union through the Designscapes project. This is just a timeline to let you understand when it started and how it is going on right now. So the concept was conceived 3 years ago, more or less. And then in 2019, I had the first co-creation sessions in the Netherlands and in Italy. And then last year during COVID, the first pilot with functional prototypes was implemented just in Italy in the public library in Empoli near Florence. At the moment, the project is going on through the collaboration with Ericsson Innovation Garage in Genoa. So, the Storytellers project is based on a particular interface, which is a robot. It's called the Story Bell. It's actually a robot in the shape of a bell that is a personal robot for children, and they use it to connect with the community of readers. The main actors of the project as a community, you can see there are the parents, the children, and then the seniors readers. Of course, there is the library in the neighborhood that these 3 actors will use during the service. The first thing is that the community needs to get ready for enabling the remote reading aloud sessions. So the library will train the storytellers, and then the child will lend the story bell will borrow the story bell from the library, and they will bring home the story bell. When the child wants to request a reading, the child will shake the bell, and by shaking the bell, a call will be sent to the storytellers, the available ones for that time of the day, and the first storytellers to answer their phone will become the storyteller of that particular reading session. The parents, in the meanwhile, can monitoring from far how the reading is going on through an app that is just dedicated for the parents. So here in this little clip, I hope you could hear the sound. Just let me know if the sound was not heard, please. And in this little clip, you could see the interaction of the children. And then you could also hear the voice of the storytellers who was answering to the phone at that particular moment. The interaction between the child and the readers is bilateral. So it's not only the child requesting a reading, but it's also the seniors who can invite the children for a read. The children through, the storytellers through their app can invite the children, and then the child can lift the bell, and by lifting the bell, they will answer to the invitation of the storyteller. Why the concept of the storytellers has begun? The Storytellers Project is about intergenerational relationships among seniors, children, and young parents. So 3 generations are involved. And the aim is that older adults could feel their aspiration to be useful for society. Children could listen to stories and bond with different aged people for their psychological development. As well, young parents could fulfill their need for interstitial support in children care. So especially when, there are those 10, 20 minutes when the parents are busy and they would like to have help in that particular moment. So it's about informal care for children, how community could get involved in that. The project had an extensive co-creation sessions, activities, both in the Netherlands and in Italy. I visited and engaged with patrons and librarians in a public library in Leiden, which hosted the project research. We had semi-structured interviews with librarians and that reacted to paper-based prototypes, so very early phase prototypes. Then in Netherlands, I also engaged with an NGO who is developing intergenerational research and projects, which is called Intergenerational Child Development Initiatives. And with them, we mapped the stakeholders and needs of the storyteller projects. You can see here, this wooden tool is a research tool that was created by myself for the sake of the research. Then I had the co-creation in the public library in Siena and Empoli in Italy. And again, I engaged with librarians and children literature experts to understand from an ethnographic point of view their dynamic with the children and the way they engage and read to children. As well, librarians reacted to the early prototypes, so the app interfaces, but also the Storybook prototype. And here you can see the first crew of the storytellers, of future storytellers, who helped me understanding the phases of their training. They also mapped how far they would like to reach children from their neighborhoods to the whole world. And also parents were engaged in the research process because they were helping me understanding the privacy they want to reach with the storytellers and how much they would like to be involved in the monitoring of the session. After the co-creation session, I developed the project further, and some functional prototypes were built thanks to the funding from EU. And the pilot happened in Empoli during the COVID period. That was really challenging, but fortunately we managed to find alternative strategy for meeting, for having the storytellers being trained. So I will just show you a little video. Can you confirm that you could hear the sound, please?
Okay.
You could hear the sound?
Now, no.
Okay, now, before, could you hear the sound?
No.
Can you hear the sound now?
No.
No. Please just confirm now if you can.
Thanks to two funds by the European Union, I've been running a pilot in a public library in Empoli, near Florence, in Italy, engaging with future readers, storytellers, and children and their families. About 10 storytellers attended a training on children literature and how to reach children at the phone. Due to COVID emergency, the training had to move online. In May 2020, storytellers had several lessons on Google Meet. Eventually, the 5 storybells were handed to the children and brought home over the summer for the rest of the experimentation. The pilot lasted all the summer, precisely from the beginning of July to the end of September 2020.
Okay, this is just a little overview of how the pilot went. And before leaving you, I would like to share with you just some seconds of the video, the final video, which summarize the experience of the participants.
Io praticamente qualsiasi cosa stavo facendo, oh oddio la campana, è suonata all'improvviso mentre non me l'aspettavo, per cui ero lì, oddio la campana, e mi figlio, mamma che queste campane!
Avevo dei libri in macchina appositamente perché se qualcuno una campana mi suonava durante i viaggi in macchina, se avevo modo di fermarmi, avevo il mio libro a portata di mano.
La prima lettura devo dire che davvero mi sono sentita molto emozionata. Pensavo fosse una cosa un pochino più tecnica, più meccanica, e invece mi sono resa conto che quando ho avuto proprio il contatto vocale con il bambino mi sono anche un po' emozionata, avevo un po' di ansia da prestazione.
Quanti anni hai, Sant'Edi?
6.
6? Allora, senti, ti posso leggere la favola della casetta troppo stretta?
Già letta.
Ti posso leggere questa casetta troppo stretta?
No, l'ho già letta. Me l'hanno già letta.
Ce l'hanno già letta questa?
Sì.
Allora ti posso leggere A caccia dell'orso?
Sì.
Poi cosa succede? Hanno tutti i piedini sporchi, le scarpe, quindi la mamma si deve mettere lì a asciugargli i piedini, a pulirgli tutte le scarpe e continuano la loro camminata a caccia dell'orso. Senti, Tancredi, ti è piaciuta la favoletta?
Sì.
Sì? Oh, bene, sì. Mi fa piacere.
Alla fine della prima lettura,
Sì?
come ti sei sentita?
Ho tirato un sospiro di sollievo per essere riuscita ad arrivare in fondo, per essere riuscita a farmi capire dal bambino. Pensavo alla cosa più meccanica, la letturina così a telefono e via, invece proprio il rapporto con il bambino, il dialogo con il bambino mi ha davvero dato gioia.
Il mio fratello 4, la mia sorella 2.
Accidenti, tu sei il più grande quindi.
Sì.
Che succede se un bambino di 5 anni si relaziona con un adulto semplicemente per una lettura? Mi sembra quasi come se fosse un principio di spinta, diciamo, un principio di fiducia e di spinta nel mondo. Ci sono adulti fuori dal nostro cerchio di famiglia che sono lì per te, che ti leggono, che non desiderano altro che leggerti, non c'è nient'altro dietro che questo.
L'intento di trasmettere la voglia di riscoprirla la lettura, perché poi parallelamente la famiglia evidentemente può prendere dei libri che non è già fatto, e nello stesso tempo in cui avviene la lettura, o magari anche il bambino può essere stimolato, siccome ha sentito leggere, a prendersi un libro.
Tutti questi animali li hai visti? La gallina, la capra, la mucca, il maiale, li conosci?
Sì, però stiamo decidendo che prendere il cane.
Lo sai, Tancredi, che io sono nata e vissuta e cresciuta in una fattoria con tanti animali, e siccome abito in campagna e ho un bel po' di posto, e mi piacciono tanto i cani e tutti gli animali, ho 4 cani e dei piccioni. Bello. Ti piacciono i piccioni?
Sì.
Sì?
Ma come li hai presi i piccioni?
Anche un po' intimorita, invece poi sembrava la cosa più naturale del mondo, ecco, anche per lui, ecco, mi sembrava di conoscerlo, io che non lo conoscevo personalmente, insomma, di conoscerlo da un po'. Dopo la prima domanda che gli ho fatto io e ho visto che rispondeva in maniera così naturale, ecco, come proprio succede prima cosa a livello personale, proprio di contatto immediato, che è un po' strano non vedendosi, se uno ci pensa, e invece si è proprio instaurato un rapporto di vicinanza, di amicizia quasi, ecco.
E poi l'altra cosa che mi è piaciuta è questo approccio che ha avuto Tancredi, perché noi non abbiamo nonni vicino, le storie Tancredi le ascoltate dalla mamma, dal babbo, quando siamo venuti in biblioteca, le maestre a scuola, credo, insomma. Visto che lui comunque è entrato subito in sintonia con i lettori. Ecco, io pensavo fosse timido, riservato, e invece no, ha avuto un approccio abbastanza libero.
Mi ha sorpreso il fatto di lasciarsi andare proprio, che tante volte mi domandavo se in quel momento continuavano a sentire la storia o pensavano di affari sua. Sono rilassati, uno si è addormentato con la storia.
Mediante mail, Sì. Vai, continuiamo. Fece allora entrare il topo e il gattino in un nascondiglio segreto, dove teneva ciò che aveva raccolto.
Okay. So I'm back. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to reach out. There is plenty of material about the project and videos, and there is a website. So just reach out if you want to learn more and have the service in your library or collaborate with me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Don't leave, because we have another speaker, and when she finishes, there are a question, I suppose, also for you. And now I introduce Antonia Cristau.
Hello.
Hello. The title about the success story is Makers Will Make and Makers Block. Please.
Yes, let me share my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be presenting today and sharing with you our experience. So I was trying to think of a definition in one phrase for open innovation, but instead keywords were coming to my mind, like co-creation and shared knowledge, open-mindedness, design thinking, and collaboration. So I was wondering which example to give first at this presentation, and then the most obvious one came to my mind, the collaboration between my startup, Makers Block, and Makers Will Make. Makers Will Make is a non-profit who owns a huge laser cutter set up in a beautiful space in Old Limassol since 2018. Maker's Block is a startup launched beginning of 2020, and the idea was to work around 3D printing technology and its capabilities. In the summer of 2020, we decided to join our forces, and so Maker's Block moved in the space. Ever since, it has been all the words I have mentioned above. We have been experimenting, sharing our knowledge on design or 3D printing or laser cutting, and we have been co-creating new ideas and products. So two very different entities with completely different goals have been working together day by day to bring more innovation in the community. Our makerspace is a pillar in the community as it allows to designers and artists to experiment with different materials and processes and actually launch their own projects or product lines through the space. We are actually today the only makerspace allowing this, as someone cannot sell products which were made in a government or university-owned makerspace. So this can actually be an issue for young people, designers or artists who want to launch a business or a project, but cannot directly buy a laser cutter or a 3D printer or other equipment. So I'm going to let you have a quick tour of our space. This is the 3D printing corner. We have mainly FDM technology printers. Here we will move on to the laser cutter. You can see it in the back. The materials. So it's a space which really moves you to create and be creative, and it's really a very inspired space. So the laser cutter. And now I'm going to share with you some examples of projects which have been created and or launched through the space. So the first two projects were created due to the fact that we wanted to reduce the plastic waste coming out of the lab, and we also wanted to find some alternatives to this plastic. So New Life is a project born by the wish that we would one day reuse all the existing plastic materials that we have created and consumed, and that no more plastic waste would end up in our oceans. So we teamed up with Precious Plastic Cyprus, who shred plastic cups. They create through a heat press beautiful sheets like the ones you can see here in the photo, for us to laser cut our designs and then create other products. So for example, the wooden bases you can see here in the photo of with the bracelets, they are made out of off-cut wood, which is actually waste from other projects of the makerspace. So we really try to reuse and not throw any material away. And plus, part of the profits of this project will go to Let's Make Cyprus Green. It's a local NGO working on sustainability projects and waste reduction projects. So the next, there's a quick video of the flakes once the bottle cups are shred. The next project is biomaterials. So Eva from Makers Will Make, our roommates, space mates, has been experimenting with biomaterials thanks to the Materium recipes. This is an open source biomaterials website. The ingredients are mainly cooking ingredients like eggshells, bicarbonate of soda, cornstarch, but also some have natural or animal origin like carnauba wax, animal glue, or pine needles. So these materials can actually make pretty solid materials. And the amazing thing is that they can be completely biodegraded after 90 days when they are put in a compost. This example on the right side, the right photo, was a pretty elementary testing for acoustic panels. The next examples concern designers or artists who experiment, make, and sell their work through the space. So the first one is Designopula. It's a group of young design graduates who launched through the makerspace a series of products with local expressions or shapes back in 2018. So these include the lefcaritico. It's a local shape that we can usually find on napkins or table sheets, and they are made in the village of Lefkara. Local expressions illustrated with designs, or words from the local Cypriot slang with an explanation. Actually, one of them has continued this project so since 2018 until today, and she now runs a complete product line through the space. So the next project concerns sustainable and alternative fashion design. Cutting or engraving fabric can be a real challenge, but it can be very revealing for fashion designers like Kelly Koulizou, a Greek sustainable fashion designer. We actually cut patterns which are impossible to cut with the scissors, or engrave on fabrics like jeans or velvet. Here again, a lefcaritico shape. Through digital manufacturing and design, we can reproduce these designs easily, even though today less and less people have the skills to actually sew it. 3D printing and art. So this art project was done for the Buffer Fringe Performing Arts Festival in 2020. The subject of the exhibition was displacement. So the idea was to 3D print on fabric phrases where letters or words were misplaced or replaced in order to completely modify the sense of the phrase and create new meanings. So you can see the 3D printer printing on some fabric. And so my last example is digital, is also on art. And so digital manufacturing has been more and more used in art. Here are some examples of laser engravings on leather and calcium bentonite clay by the artist Leontios Tumbouris, who has also tried laser cutting on various other materials like mild steel, bisque fired clay, etc. So this was the end of my presentation. I hope you found this interesting. Feel free to contact us for any further questions.
Okay, thank you, Antonia. I hope you are in your office. I saw behind you.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I suppose it's a nice place where you are created a new item and recycled everything you can. So now we pass about the question. The first one is for Fran. Fran, are you here? You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. How the reaction generated by the audience during the artist performance experience can generate knowledge from them?
Well, it really depends on the challenge you are facing. I mean, what we do try to do is, you know, this kind of rat's labyrinth. So we are able to create all these scenes where we want to validate whatever theory. So when we invite the audience, because it's a non-profit foundation, so they never pay, so they are invited. So we play with them in order to gather data from them. For example, an easy question, an easy example, sorry, if you want to validate the smart city emergency system that we were talking about, that we will record how people move when we create an emergency. But at the end, in order to be responsible, let's say, and follow this responsible research and innovation, yes, when we finish the show, we always open what we call Performa Forum, and then we talk about what happened and what we were trying to validate and we were trying to test. So how we gather data, it always depends on the challenge. So for example, with neuroscientists, we do surveys, we do questionnaires on live by using a mobile application that we develop here. When doing some other things, we record everything in order to analyze the images. So it really depends on the requirements and or the objectives that the experts will have on the challenge.
Okay, I am reading. There are different considered about your project. Also, there are positive comment about you and your foundation. So, Laura, how many storytellers are you involved in the project, and how the project will evolve?
So during the pilot, we had a total of 8 storytellers that follow all the 3 months pilot. And during the co-creation, we had a much crowded group, but then due to the fact that we had online training, many of them dropped. So didn't follow the pilot because of the online trainings. They couldn't meet at the library during COVID and have the training sessions. So for example, the eldest one couldn't join the lessons by the actor through Zoom. So we had just 8 storytellers during the pilot, but it was enough for the little pilot we had.
Okay, some participate would like to get involved in the project for their children as well.
What do you, can you repeat?
Some participate would like to get involved in the project for their children.
Some participants, I think they wanted both. They want to get involved because of the children, to be in contact with the children, but also because they love to read. And they were already engaged with the library, so it's a bit of both, if I understood correctly the question.
No, okay, now I am reading the detail. This was a consideration because we are in director, so some participate in this event want to be involved in the project. So I think
just reach me.
Yes. Before Laura leave is the last slide, the address, email, also if I don't remember, I remember well the website. No, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay,
there is a website, and if you Google my name and storytellers, something will pop up. So it's easy to reach me.
Okay.
I would be happy to receive more storytellers.
Okay, good. It's indifferent where they live, no?
Yes. At the moment, we have no pilot because there is a moment in which the technology, I'm iterating the technology and developing the technology further. So there is Ericsson in Genoa that is helping me with all the robot. So at the moment, there are no reading sessions. And there are no foundings, unfortunately. But in the future, I wish to apply to other grants, and I wish to provide the service to libraries as a product. So I'm really keen on collaborating with libraries and other people. Okay, perfect. I would include it also in your team, Laura. Okay, this is a question for every speaker. Think about open innovation. What are the first 2 keywords coming to your mind? So, Laura. I have 2, trust and generosity. In sharing knowledge and in sharing resources.
Okay, and Antonia?
I would say sharing in general, whether it's knowledge or material or machines or anything, and collaboration, like really unconditional collaboration.
And Fran?
Yeah, just to don't repeat, I mean, I will say mutual learning and disruption.
Okay, there is also other speaker I didn't see. Okay, I thought the flexible, because when you are in working innovation, you must be flexible. It's not or not.
Yeah, sure. Even for understanding the others.
Yeah.
You need.
Belosevic, can you hear Belosevic? Okay. There are other questions? I don't think so. Please let me know. Okay, it's done. Thank you so much for your different idea. In this afternoon, I will work on open innovation. So, and now we can let's go in the other presentation of the speaker. The following talk we explore how COVID-19 has affected the culture and creative industry and opened up now opportunity for the sector, especially for implementing an open innovation approach. Fernando Villarigno is a chairperson from the European Network of Living Lab and associate director in Computer Vision Center. Now we are in Spain, so we are moving in different countries this morning. Morning,
yes,
Fernando.
hello, good morning. First of all, per me è un piacere essere qui e grazie al team dell'Innovation Cambria italiana per la pazienza l'attesa dell'ultima versione delle mie diapositive. Thank you, I was saying thank you for the waiting of my last version of the slides who arrived today, and thank you also for all the team in the organization of the meeting. Indeed, first of all, can I please, because I presume that we are probably a little restricted in terms of time. Can you tell me how many minutes can I have for the presentation?
Okay, we are just a little bit tired, but don't worry, we can respect your time. We fix it before, so 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I will try to be very concise. The first thing is just a presentation of my initial background. I come from this building, the Computer Vision Center, and my background is artificial intelligence, is computer vision, which is the artificial intelligence of images and videos. And in my presentation, I will try to provide some examples on how to use this artificial intelligence also in order to support the cultural and creative industries ecosystem. I will also provide a number of examples because I think that today is a good day for libraries, for public libraries, and I will provide also some examples of libraries as well. But here the key concept is that we are researchers that are doing a technology transfer, and this technology transfer is creating an impact in our society. This research is the base of our innovation, and this impact can be translated in different ways. And also in different scenarios. You know that we are using computer vision everywhere in our mobile phones, also with the autonomous car, also in medical imaging in order to detect pathologies, etc., but also in the field of culture. And this is important and relevant to understand that since culture and creativity is an area that is also changing dramatically with the addition of technology, both for the possibility of connection of the internet, but also for the tools that we are having. As a matter of fact, our neural networks eventually are starting painting and are starting designing and are starting creating new things, mimicking features that before they were only assumed to the human beings. We will not enter in this discussion. We will leave this for a completely different discussion. But definitely key is culture in the construction of a community. And community is the base also that I will, the concept that I will touch upon in a few slides. Culture is understood also the symbolic space where our society is built in parallel to the physical spaces that we are using in order to share our life, such as public libraries, such as museums or streets themselves as well. And this sector is also for an economic impact with some features that we will go over in a few seconds. Has to be lively and dynamic. Fran already mentioned a number of actions that they have been doing together with the Fundació Èpica de la Fuga dels Baus. So we can have these two dimensions, right? The culture of this common symbolic space, and also the creative and cultural industry as a business, as niche for socio-economic impact. This is probably being affected very much for the COVID-19 disease and the pandemic of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Definitely, this has been affecting the fact that cultural and creative sector is a fragmented sector with a lot of diverse approaches in the different, let's say, companies that used to be small or micro firms, a lot of freelance professionals. So this is one of the features that we can find in the creative and cultural and all the industries based on the experience, Experience is a strong keyword in my presentation as well. Definitely, this has had an effect, and we have seen that in the European Network of Living Labs for the different webinars that we have done online, with a loss of revenue because we have been forced in order to reduce the auditorium, in order to reduce the audience that is attending to the performances, who is attending to the museums, to libraries. They have shut down in the initial stages of the pandemic, and they have been rethinking themselves as well. So for that, it is also true that we have new challenges and opportunities in terms of communication, because we have lived an increased process of digitalization in our lives. 2 years ago, we usually had probably 1, 2 Skype conferences during our week. Now this is our day by day, our hour by hour. Previously, I was sharing another conference also with a completely different platform, right? This has been evolving also in a digital culture. So we human beings have been developing during a very, very fast, a very short amount of time, at a very fast pace, our digital approach, also our digital identity. And particularly, we have been speaking about that in the Data Week, a conference that is taking place also during this week, our digital identities, that we don't know what it is yet, but that we are living with thanks to our data. And increased interactivity between the agents, and definitely the possibility, as we have seen in some of the presentations of the cases of success, new artistic and creative formats and way of doing that. So we have an hypothesis. The hypothesis is Living Labs, and we will go into the definition, are an effective tool for the creative and cultural sector to become more dynamic, impactful, and with higher level of engagement. And when we mean engagement, we're meaning engagement at all levels, including citizen engagement. So this is the hypothesis that I would like to develop during these minutes. First of all, let me introduce the core of this hypothesis, Living Labs. Living labs, at least in the way that I will present today, are presented in the context of the European Network of Living Labs. The European Network of Living Labs was born in 2006, so it's a teenager organization, now international non-for-profit, that even though it is called European Network of Living Labs, it is a global movement. It's a global movement that is gathering the living labs around the world, these multi-stakeholder, citizen-centric innovation approaches in order to foster positioning the citizen in the center of all the actions, facilitating the knowledge exchange, capacity building, creation of consortia, and also influencing EU policies and international policies on the way. But what is a living lab? I prepared this one slide that in some way summarizes these features that a living lab can share. The first thing is living labs are about innovation. Open innovation ecosystems, and we have heard about the term open innovation in the previous presentations, but with some particular features. This feature is that there is a citizen-centric approach, so the emphasis in this open innovation ecosystems is the participatory component of the citizens. This is implemented in something that we call the multiple helix approach. In this case, we have a quadruple helix, meaning that we are having industry, in this case, the cultural and creative industries, the academia, the research institutes and the universities, the government, the public institutions such as municipalities or regional governments or national or international associations, and also the people, the citizens themselves in terms of associations or at individual level. We can expand this four helix at a multiple helix approach if we include the territory and the sustainability, the green approach, the circular economy. This would be because of that we talk about multiple helix and not only about four helix. So which are the basic features of the living labs? First of all, they are real life settings, and we have seen some examples and we will see more. We are talking about, for instance, public libraries or hospitals or a street, or we could be thinking about a living lab that it is in a field, in a crop field, in the area of agriculture. So this is the first component, and this is relevant because we need an active user involvement, and this can only happen in real life settings. In this area, we are talking also about processes of co-creation. Processes of co-creation together all these actors of the four helix. That means that it is not that we are asking citizens for their ideas as only. The idea is just to try to put the citizen in the center. So that means that the co-creation process is participated within together with the citizens, right? In this approach, the perception of this citizen-centric view is having citizens as actors of the transformative processes and not factors. And all these things provides an orchestration of multi-methodological approach of these partners. So this is a quite open process, right, that we have been implementing in ENOL in different verticals. These verticals are social innovation and digital rights, social impact of artificial intelligence, health and well-being, energy and environment, and rural living labs. Why these 5 verticals? Well, because we know that we have critical mass of living labs in our community of labs that can connect to external partners, not necessarily living labs or other that we will like to become a living lab, in order to exchange knowledge and to create a narrative for the innovation approaches on each vertical. This is very important because we have also these transversal components. For instance, the smart city, Internet of Things is probably linked at a transversal way around those. So we know that we have critical mass and with that we can have take some conclusions for this critical mass approach. What we have been doing, particularly in the Computer Vision Center, is try to explore how technology transforms the cultural experience of people. In this context, that we are part of a group of living labs that are willing to tackle social innovation, right, by using technology as the enabling factor. So we have created the Library Living Lab as a pilot in the metropolitan area of Barcelona that has had an enormous impact in the definition of the network of libraries. And this is something that definitely I would like to put emphasis in. You can see here the place where the Library Living Lab is in an urban context in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. This is a public library in which we co-designed together with the members of with the neighbors of this neighborhood, a neighborhood that suffered a lot from the bubble crash in 2011, and they had nothing. They didn't have services in a very, very young neighborhood. So they fought a lot with the municipality so that they could have a public library, and they wanted something technological there related to technology. So we, the Computer Vision Center, thought that it could be a good idea to work together with them. And you can see in the second part, the 4 helix sitting around the table: the university, the Association of Neighbors, and the municipality of Sant Cugat, which is the owner of the public library, and the regional governor of Barcelona, understanding that the companies will join at a project level, the project level that will be decided together around this governance model. And the governance model arises here as one of the challenges of the innovation processes. Here, one of the consequences after a number of years of working in this pilot of the Library Living Lab is that now the network of more than 230 public libraries of Barcelona has scaled up the Library Living Lab concept towards a program which is called Bibliolab. And in this Bibliolab, in the logo, they have create, innovate, and experiment. And I want to stop here, because this provides a systemic transformation of a place-based approach generated like a seed in a small library of the metropolitan area of Barcelona. When you put a seed on a place, it can grow out, and now it can evolve to something more complex, which is the way in which the network of public libraries in Barcelona are using, for instance, citizen science, open innovation strategies, and how can they connect with the SMEs in order to get new products and services. And the type of products and services that we have, and I know that we have a very restricted time. For that reason, I provided you with this QR that you can focus with your camera, and you can see a lot of videos. We have a number of videos here. But for instance, we have identified the use of educational apps together with teachers, and also the visiting the museums and breaking the walls between museums and public libraries, the role of 3D printing in a library, and also if I'm not wrong, it was Laura who was talking about storytelling. So we have an example of storytelling, and probably if I can share my screen, ignore my hairdressing. This was years ago, and well, nothing has changed a lot, probably less hair, and that's it. So what we had here is that, you know, that there is the storytelling hour. In the storytelling hour, what usually happens, I'm going to stop this for a second, is that we have a storyteller that comes to the library and tells a story to the children. So what we wanted to do is to use technology in order to modify, to go further as the service. And what we did, we worked with an SME, a small SME, in order to create a new workshop. And in this workshop, first the children created their script, their story. Then they created their characters and also the scenarios. They painted them with our tools. And then in the second day of the workshop, after it was a 5-hour workshop, they made the theatralization, the dramatization of this process. So it was a co-creation process of one piece of dramatic art. But the interesting thing here is that these pictures that they had was projected into the screen. And with a motion detection system that you can see on the top of the video wall here of the screen, the motion of the body, you see they open there, there's a Kinect device, was projected into their own characters. So with this, we created a new thing, which is a digital object. And this digital object opens a question to the library, which is, where do I put a co-created digital object? Libraries do not know how to do that, because they usually have just one arrow, is to providing a service. So this is a new service that opens the way to tackling the challenges of new ways of approaches of storytelling. We have implemented also this type of technological approach in this by doing, in order to unveiling the social impact of AI. I wouldn't talk too much about this because we don't have too much time, but what I want to mean is that citizen science is now becoming an enormous possibility in order to approach our researchers to spaces such as public libraries, and in order to open this debate for artificial intelligence and this debate for the new technologies. It's an enormous thing because, for instance, in Catalonia, all the students in high school, they have to do a final year research project, a final year research project. That means that every year we have 20,000 plus research works. So we want to include this knowledge generation action into the libraries, and to understand how the universities and the municipalities can work in a challenge-based approach, so that our citizen scientists can now empower themselves with the power of science. So another example of this, and also linking public libraries with galleries and archives and museums, what we call GLAMs, is a process of photogrammetry, in which we created a process. We innovated in the process. Photogrammetry implies that we have to take a lot of pictures of for example, the cloister capitals that we are having here, one of the jewel of the crown of the Romanesque sculpture in Catalonia. So we did that, and we created this process, and then the users of the library went to the museum, which is a cloister, and took a lot of photos for that. With those photos, we created a 3D model. We provided capacity building in order to create these models. By the end of the day, what we had is a catalog. The citizens created this catalog. You still have here the, and this of course has a potential impact in technology transfer. You can see, for instance, in one of the models that we are having here, and you will see that you could identify. This was done with a mobile phone after taking more than 80 photographs around there. But you can see that, for instance, you can see that there is elements of polychromy that you cannot see there if you are in the monastery, right? Because you cannot stand up and look so close. And eventually that can be used in also for companies to provide services such as the monitoring of the artifacts, and to see if they have been broken and if they are still with the same state as they used to have. So we have a catalog of these cloisters now created by the citizens. And so in the good thing about that is that now citizens become the co-creators of the city's cultural digital heritage. And this is very important, because we are not only going to enjoy this, but we are going also to be part of it, to create it. If we now use a 3D printer, and we learn how to do it in the library as well, we can also provide an inclusive approach with blind people. Let me please use my last 3 minutes into 2 other examples in which we can reuse our heritage. For instance, we had a project with the 5 centuries of marriages in the Cathedral of Barcelona. We have all the story of 5 centuries of marriages, with something very important, which is the money that the families paid for that. So with computer vision techniques, we can spot the words, make connections, and understand with the Demographics Studies Institute of Barcelona the evolution of the economic power of the families of Barcelona. And this is important because if we can do it with one manuscript archive, we can do it with a number of archives. And then what we did is to extend that to a number of archives of the metropolitan area of Barcelona. And then the human factor comes here, because we asked the people to identify and to try to interpret all these parts that were not clear for the algorithm to identify. And with that, and with the knowledge that the people have about about the archives, for instance, no, I know this picture, and this picture was my grandfather, and my grandfather, I know that he had a friend, and this friend was this name, etc., etc. So this is a citizen science project in which the participation of the people helps the artificial intelligence algorithms to evolve. And the Give Back is a website in which we can interlink physical archives with human archives with multimedia contents. And this is part of a European project, a European approach, which is the European Time Machine, which is basically aiming at having the European Facebook historical. Okay, we have a number of other actions, and now I'm finishing, in the European network of living labs. For instance, our colleagues in the United Kingdom are mixing also the use of art for unfavored communities. And these unfavored communities usually are those more affected for the digital bridge, for the gap that we are having in accessing the new technology that we are having. They are not the early adopters. They are usually taking a part. And there is a strong component of inclusion and social discussion through art, because art is something that we can all have access to if we are given the possibility. You had the chance to know more about what Fran and their colleagues are doing also in La Fura dels Baus at Epica Lab. And but I would like to mention here that there is a component here of capacity building by doing these things. And this is something that probably I would like to put emphasis. We participated with our researchers in some of these performances, and the final comeback that let's say that the people working on that program, working with Fran on that program had, is that they could show in their CVs that they developed some capacities that provides them with a competitive approach to the market. And some of them are disfavored populations as well. So this is an element in which technology can be perceived also as a positive contribution, not only as a risk. Finally, I would like also to mention the job done with our colleagues in the Basque Country, the Guernica's Music Living Lab, which was born from the political culture plan that was in 2019. So here we have to understand also that when I was speaking about the cloister capitals, this is material heritage, but we have immaterial heritage as well, and the storytelling, as mentioned by Laura as well, is one of those, but music it is too. So they have been working in order to establish collaboration, and in order to understand how the different people from the territory can provide this dimension of a material heritage. So I would definitely give my slides for sharing. If you need to know more about Living Labs, you can also consult the publication list at enol.org. Please, if you want to join our community, the Enol Digital Living Lab Days is the second week of September, and we have a learning tool. Capacity building, as I was mentioning, is essential in the digital transformation in order to not leaving anyone behind. And we opened a program for virtual learning lab that has 8 weeks for capacity building in open innovation, citizen-centric technologies, social technologies, and the next one will be during the autumn. So I think that with that I use my 25 minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, and I finally heard something positive about the effect of this virus. And thank you also. Thanks, they are sharing the project emotion through to the video where we can watch the child play and also have contact with the heart. So I informed that this first event of the camp will be available on the project social channels and the website in the coming day. Of course, all participate will receive a notification. Okay, we are about to conclude this first day, and we have also received several points for reflection. And now, I don't know if there are some questions for you. Let me check. No. And at this point, I give the floor the last speaker. Excuse me, I lost my point. Marco Diciano, responsible of the research and innovation section, Innovation Puglia, Italy. Good morning, Marco Diciano.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Welcome in this event.
Yeah, my job here just to say the conclusions, and I would like to comment and add a few words of what have been already let's say explained or reported during this long morning of discussion. First of all, I would like to say that I'm the Research and Innovation Officer at Puglia, which is the in-house company of Puglia region. And we are mandatory for the work on pilot of innovation. So in terms of experimentation and transformation and digital modification of all the public administration efforts, and we are also in charge of the procurement of this innovation. So it means that we are involved in the piloting of the technologies and also in the purchase of these technologies. And when I'm saying here purchasing, I'm remarking here this point because we all know that what we talked about, research, innovation, creativity, it become real part of the territory development, also in terms of economic development, only if this innovation will enter in the real process of all the different actors. Either we are talking about public administration, e-government sector, health sector, social sectors, and so on. So it means that there is a direct link among the experimentation and the purchasing of these technologies. We heard this morning also about a very interesting concept concerning the business model, the capture of the value of the innovation, the ecosystem, the transferability, and so on. And we will work in the afternoon for the people that will stay in the afternoon and have been registered for the working group of the afternoon. And we will work exactly trying to better understand how all these experiences can be really translated and can be used for real process, as I was saying before, able to be purchased, able to be inserted in the economical process of all the actors, specifically for the regional and city level actors. And so we will talk about the financial instrument, the co-working space, the cultural and creative industries, and so on. You know, all what we discussed this morning, but trying to understand what are the main priorities that can be taken from this result and can be inserted in some real policy level, first of all understanding, and later on experimentation and transferring on the real process. But this is something that is clear. I mean, it's also one of the purpose of our project, of the social innovation, that I imagine this morning has been already presented during the introduction phase. And we also have here the project officer of the project listening to this very interesting morning. But I wanted to comment and take some minutes also, just trying to summarize what we heard about the 5 different experiences, and also the synthesis that have been proposed by the annual representative here. Because what I think is that we are managing here on many aspects, I would say, because we heard about humanity, science, technologies, places, environment, circularities, and so on, you know. And what I think is that we should consider that creativity, according to our point of view, is something very pervasive, I would say, like technology. So it means that like the evolution of the technology, we should think about the evolution of the creativity. And I think that this is the right time to also switch to a higher level of understanding of this changing world. And this means that like the technology is always becoming more and more pervasive, and also in the future will be more and more transparent for our lives. Also, the creativity will stay like a prompter that will provide results without knowing that there has been a huge work behind. Like exactly the technology, when you open a smartphone, you can never imagine how many electronic devices, how many years and many months of work have been inside. But for now, for everybody, this is a commodity. This is normal, you know. So what I think we should focus in our coming future is the fact that we have to merge the humanity and the technology. And I think that the best way to do so is using the creativity. And this is why we think that social and creative industries is a specific sector that it is not to be intended transversal just because it's easy to say like this, but because I think that the creativity and all the results of this specific word can be applied to sustain the other market, also the traditional market. I don't know, we are talking about co-working space. There is a way to translate a different approach in the creativity and in the working of people. And this was something that we started to study and to learn many years ago. Nowadays that we have this pandemic situation, we are now understanding that this is something that we can use to transform the real way of work. So I would like here to conclude saying that I think that we are going fast towards what Professor Floridi, which is a professor of philosophy and ethics of the information and director of the Digital Ethics Lab at Oxford University, says when he tried to introduce these new keywords, that is the own life paradigms. It means that we are in the middle of integrating the real life and the virtual life. We've seen many examples today, but there are also many others. And I think that this paradigm of one life, that is the merging, of course, of the real life and the online life, it is like the mangrove society. The mangrove is something that live in the brackish water. So where the rivers and the sea meet together, I would say. So two different words meet together. And if you think about that, this is a real incomprehensible environment if you look at it from your specific perspective, like, for example, the fresh water or the salt water. You know, it's something extremely strange. But on life is exactly this. Is a new way of existing, I would say, in which the barrier between real and virtual has fallen. So in our case, the barrier between the standard approach and the creativity approach has fallen. And the reason there will be no longer difference between real and virtual, because the technology is always becoming, as we said, more and more pervasive. But this is exactly the challenge that we need to face, and probably our personal existence is an hybrid existence like the ones that is inside the habitat of the mangroves. So I really thank you all the people that have been here today, because they helped us to go exactly in this direction. And I give the appointment to the people that will stay with us in this reserved working group of the afternoon, trying to put on the table what are all the potentiality of this word, because it's always a question of relationship between real life, virtual life, humanity, and technologies living together.
Thank you so much for your consideration. That we are finished this first event. I remember there will be another 2 appointments, and so I can say we see the next time, and we hope the person are following this first events can go at home and reflect about the innovation and try the consideration. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.